Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming this morning. And I wanted to welcome our town manager, Mr. Dumas. And I'm going to give him the floor this morning. I know you're all very excited to listen to him speak and ask some questions, and here's your opportunity. Thank you for coming.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you and the staff here at the COA. So welcome and thank you so much for coming out on a cold morning. And thank goodness it's not as cold as it was on Tuesday with 5 degrees, right? So thank you very much. It's nice to be back here again. And I was saying to Joe just a few minutes ago, catching up on some issues. And I said, you know, I can't believe it's already been a little over a year since I've been with you here in Mansfield. And it's gone by like that. It's incredible. And looking about the things that have gone on in just 1 year, we'll talk a little bit about that today, but to see how fast, literally 12 months goes by. And it's been a real nice journey being able to get to know all the staff here in town and working together on many projects and initiatives and going through 2 town meetings, which was my first time in May doing our first one. And of course, we had a special town meeting in November as well. And it was an incredible experience and really getting to know, people here in Mansfield, and also to get, your form of government much more closely and much more intimately, and really seeing democracy really truly at work, because it's not a representative town meeting, it's open town meeting. And so you get to hear people's concerns, you get to answer people's questions, and it's truly up to the residents of Mansfield of how they feel about a certain issue, and whether it's a yay or whether it's a nay. And so it's truly an interesting process, and it's really been a wonderful opportunity to serve all of you and the 24,000 residents of Mansfield. But so certainly talking about a year goes by very, very fast, and the staff has been very busy, and we've worked on several projects. There were a lot of construction projects, and I heard someone over here was from the Park Street area, so we know we did Park Street, Park Ave. We did a lot of work on Old Colony. We had talked about one of the projects. For those who were here a year ago, we were talking about the things that were coming up in 2018. And so we did a beautiful improvement project that will be wrapping up in the spring, but about 90% of the work is done. And that was to redo Old Colony, right from downtown all the way through and up to Court Street. And so we ended up doing some parking improvements, some lighting improvements, all new landscaping that's going in across the area. And we probably added almost 52 parking spaces for that section of the downtown and the little area where the Fales Park is. So we'll be wrapping up all of that construction progress in the spring. Hopefully we don't get too much more of the white stuff outside, and we'll be able to get going hopefully by the end of March, beginning of April. But that's just phase 1 of our improvements, tying right into the downtown. And a year from now, we're going to be working on the next sector, which is going to be from Court Street, across Fairfield Park, and up to East Street. And we're going to be completing the rest of the parking lot improvements in the multi-use path, so we can tie right into the East Street bike path and continue to walk. Right now, it's kind of a mismatch in the middle, where you're kind of walking down the middle of a parking lot from Park Street to Court Street. So we're going to be making the last part of the connection improvements, but the staff did a wonderful job out there. So with the electric department and the Department of Public Works Highway Division, they did a really good job this summer, and all of the roadway improvements and sidewalk projects that we were working on. But particularly looking forward to the next construction season as well. We've got someone from over here is on Rumford. You're on Rumford. So we're coming to Rumford Ave, and we're going to be doing our roadway repaving. And we're also going to be doing sidewalk improvements, and we'll be tying into the pond and making improvements over there as well for additional recreational opportunities. But we couldn't get to it this year, so we had sent a letter out to everybody saying we're going to do some temporary pavement patches, but we'll be back next summer. So we will be back next summer for the new sidewalks and granite curbing and the roadway repaving, and that's going to be from 214 Rumford, the large building, all the way down to West Street. So we've had a lot of improvements with that. We rolled out a new program through the health department. It's called the FOG program, and some of you may have seen it in the paper, or you may have seen us talking about it at one of our select board meetings. But it's called FOG, Fats, Oils, and Greases. And not a lot of people think about what happens when restaurants, particularly those who have a lot of fried food, what happens if they're not maintaining their grease traps and all of that grease goes down the drain. Well, we have a massive sewer system here in Mansfield, and what happens, it coagulates on the inside of the sewer main. And when you get high flow, It actually looks like, if you've never seen it, I hope you never have to see it, but I've seen it at high flow where it actually will release off the inside of the sewer main, and it looks like the skin of an alligator. It's really unbelievable. And what happens if it releases and it's flowing through the sewer main, if there's a large turn or a 90-degree turn, sometimes all of that grease that's now coagulated gets stuck. And what happens is that then you end up having a sewer main backup. So unfortunately, we had one circumstance that happened in 2018, but luckily the health department and the Board of Health was already working on new regulations for the program. So Amy, our health agent, has been very, very diligent about going out and starting to meet with all of the businesses to say, here are our new regulations. We need to start to work with you, making sure you have the proper grease trap, making sure that you're maintaining them. Because if we don't, we can actually be fined by the Department of Environmental Protection if we don't have a maintenance program in place. So Amy, our health agent, is working with the Highway Division, and they're actually formulating a program to make sure we're doing the inspections and that we're also going in and that we're maintaining and cleaning the inside of the sewer lines. So Mark Cook, who's our highway manager here in town, Mark has talked about that within the period of a year, we should probably, on all of our main lines in town, we'll have them all cleaned appropriately and we'll have them inspected. So that's a very good thing, and it's nice to be able to have that ongoing here in Mansfield. But that was a big program to get off the ground and running, and certainly all the accolades to the group to be able to make that happen. But another big group, what I have to say, and I said it a year ago, I'm going to say it today, not only the staff here at the COA, but the staff and the talented staff of the police department and the fire department, to work with them hand in hand. Every week we have a construction meeting every Thursday. And to see the progress, not only of the DPW facility opening and have them operation in their new facility throughout this winter season, but also to see the diligence that they've put forth into the construction project as we make our way through the progress is really amazing. And to see the time, talent, and energy to go into the specifics of using best practices in policing and firefighting activity to plan out the new building that's under construction right now is really amazing. And to see their dedication, and I mean, the intricacies into even, I'll give you a couple of examples. One, having to do with washing and drying of protective firefighter gear, something I never really understood. This washing machine that they have to be able to make sure that our men in the fire department, I would say men and women, but we don't have our first woman firefighter paramedic yet, but the men in the fire department, that when they take off their firefighter protective gear, if they've gone to an incident, in order to make sure that the contaminants from the fire actually come out of the protective gear, it goes into, it's about a $30,000 special washing machine. It actually scans the code of the gear so we can make sure and always prove that our firefighters are actually having their gear washed. It spins so quickly to make sure that it actually extracts any of the chemicals out of the gear. It has to have its own concrete pad as a foundation into the floor, for if it didn't, and they just put the bolts in the floor, it would rip right out of the concrete. So just to go in the specificity of having them explain all these intricate details, and that the dryer in and of itself can't be more than 68 degrees or it can harm the fabric of the protective gear, and it wouldn't fight against the chemicals that they're in front of. And that's in the new building. Yes. To see the unbelievable changes in technology and the requirements to make sure that our staff are safe is incredible. Yes?
Where does it flush out to, though? It's taken all the contaminants in the washing machine. Where does it flush out to?
So that goes through the sewer system, and it gets treated at the municipal sewer plant in Norton. So it's amazing to see, because you would think of that, to say, does that have to be specially treated or go through a special process? It all gets handled and particularly treated down at the wastewater plant. And as you're aware, we have a shared plant with Mansfield, Foxborough, and Norton, and that's located down in Norton. And they can also treat at that facility any other of the chemicals that come from commercial and industrial facilities. That all gets processed down at the plant.
The fire department's not open up there now, they use that equipment up there.
Not yet. So right now we're sending out the equipment
Send it out now.
because the current machine that they did have, it broke down. And instead of having it repaired when we're going to be moving over there,
Right.
we said we'll just send it out for now. And also through capital improvements, we were able to buy an extra set of new gear for everybody. So that way, in case there is an issue where it was wet and they have to treat it, they have a backup gear.
Go to the open house when it opens.
And we're gonna get, you're jumping ahead of me. She's good, she's reading my mind. So as part of the public safety building, our goal is to be present and open for July 1st. So we're gonna start to phase in the move, God willing, hopefully over the month of June. So we can try to get all of our administrative staff moved in first, and then we would then cause the right day and the right time or the right shift coming in, that those people would report to duty at the new facility, and then eventually close down the other facilities as well. But we're really looking forward to have them open for July 1st, and to have them up and operational. And something that we had talked about a while ago, which is going to be a change, that effective for July 1st, we're no longer going to have our own dispatch center. So we're going to regional dispatch, and that's going to be eventually for 4 towns. It's going to be Norton, Easton, Mansfield, and Foxborough, and we're all coming together as one. And what that does, it gives us 2 things. 1, it saves us money. 2, it gives us more staff to operate dispatch efficiently. So right now, we only have typically 2 dispatchers on duty for both police and fire, and that's located at the current police department on West Street. And you can imagine, as we continue to grow in the additional calls for service when we have emergencies, we have to be required to stay on the line to make sure that we're providing EMD, emergency medical dispatching, where we have to make sure that that call taker stays on the line for every 911 call. During high volume, that gets extremely difficult, as you can imagine, especially in emergency conditions. When we're full operation regionally, there'll end up being about 8 to 12 call takers that we can do that regionally. So we'll provide better service for all 4 towns, and we actually save dollars long-term as well. We'll end up saving about $200,000 to $300,000 a year total. It really is a lot, and we're getting better service for it. So effective, we're going to be moving into a new building eventually about 1.5 years from now, and that's going to be at the High Rock location in Foxborough. It's right in the middle of the state forest. It's a bunker that's made out of concrete. It was originally built back in the 60s that can withstand a nuclear blast of 5 miles. So talk about, you couldn't have a better protected facility as a regional dispatch center, especially under emergent conditions or weather conditions. It's going to take about 1.5 years to fully build it out and to use it for our conditions, but temporarily, effective for July 1st, we're going to be together in the Foxborough Police Department. So they'll hold dispatch for Foxborough and Mansfield. They'll take those calls together until we move to the High Rock location 1.5 years from now. But that's something that's a really big ordeal. The 4 towns came together a couple of years ago, agreed to do it, felt it was the best interest of all 4 municipalities. And to be able to lift this off, it's taken the direction of Rob Verdone. Rob is our executive director, and he's been pulling together all the pieces to create this organization from scratch. And so the 4 town managers and administrators come together. We meet as a member of the board, and Rob is our executive director. We're starting to hire some staff now and to get ready to start the training in order to get this lifted off the ground. And a lot of work with the federal and the state government as well. We've already received over $2 million in grants to do this. This isn't costing any additional money to the town of Mansfield, which is very, very important for everyone to know. This is all grant funded from the 911 surcharge that everybody has in their cell phone and landline telephones. You'll see a little charge that says 911. And that funds all statewide dispatch centers. So for the entire state, for 351 cities and towns, that's where that money comes from. So they provided us first with over $2 million to get off the ground and running. Total, it's going to be about $5.5 million to have all the investment put into the building and to create the new organization. And then annually, we receive a state-funded grant, and then this town pitches in a little bit from each of the 4 towns to make that happen. So it's really, that's something that's taken a lot of work in 2018 that we'll be very proud to lift off. And they know, effective July 1st, when we move in, we don't have a dispatch center in the new public safety complex. That was an important point that Chief Sellon wanted to make sure that I mentioned, because it saved $1.5 million off of the construction of that project. Because if we had to include dispatch, it would have cost another $1.5 million to construct that inside the new public safety building. So it also saved money there as well. But they know we're going live July 1st in the new building, so SEMRAC has to be up and running for July 1st. So that's something that's taken a lot of work in 2018, but again, the staff has been fantastic in order to do that. And again, it's something that I didn't realize, but both chiefs had said, listen, there are ancillary duties that happen inside dispatch that you don't normally think about. You know, the dispatchers keep an eye on the cameras and they watch people who are in custody into the jail cell. They're processing paperwork, they're processing warrants, they're processing information for the court, they're handling information calls that may be coming from the general public. There are a lot of other ancillary duties that happen inside the station that are handled by dispatch. So they came up with a very unique way that when you enter our new building, effective once we're open, that we're going to have front desk personnel. And those front desk personnel will be the people to be able to answer questions or process information for the general public, or happen to call the police department. Those are the people that be answering the calls. The front desk people will also, not that we want situations like this, but we know that we happened, especially last winter when we lost electricity, we had a horrible storm. Calls will overflow from the electric department if the residents call. Those people will get those overflow electric calls so we can make sure that we're working with Mansfield Electric to dispatch the proper services that people need. So it's a multifaceted front desk personnel that we're going to be hiring, and that's going to be effective for July 1st as well. So we tried to cross our T's, dot our I's of thinking of all the new processes that we're going to need for the new facility, but it's truly amazing when you get to come on the tour. So we're looking for, they're going live, we want to get them inside in July, work out the kinks, any type of new building and new process. We want to take care of that during the month of July, and we're looking for an open house, and we'll be advertising that certainly here at the COA, but we'll be talking with cable access, we'll be talking with the local newspapers as well to get the message out. We want to do that open house in August. And so that way the general public, really interesting, and just to be able to see the new facility, how it works, how much thought went into it. Even with specific lanes for the fire apparatus when they pull into the garage. Deputy Chief Pulio and Chief Boldregini were really thoughtful to say, listen, while we have this new protective floor and the vehicles pull in, it'd be very helpful for the drivers of the vehicles to be able to have red edge lines on the gray floor. So that way they can make sure that the apparatus is strictly within the area that it should be, and that's also for employee safety, and also when we're pulling in and out of the garage bays, that there's less incidents of somebody being a little too close to the edge and maybe nicking a mirror or something to that effect. So people took a lot amount of time to think about every aspect of the job, how they do it, how to make it a little bit better. And especially also with the police department, we're working through and are in our final stages, and something you should be really proud of is that we're almost achieving our accreditation for our police department, and something that Mansfield hasn't had. And that's taken a lot of work of many, many staff to be able to go through it and to make sure we have all the correct and up-to-date policies and procedures for current day modern policing. And so that's something that was very, very important, and that's been ongoing for a couple of years. State inspectors recently came in and started to be able to go through our policies and procedures and do an inspection of our current police department, making sure that there's the proper place for weapons, that there's a proper place for storage of incident materials. If there's drug activities, what is your check-in procedure? What's your check and balance between management and the staff, and how all processes are handled? And that's going to be wrapped up hopefully by the summer, and we'll receive full accreditation. So that's something very, very positive that the chief and all of the leadership staff have been very busy working on, and that we're very, very proud of as well. And it's not every municipality has that, but it is the kind of the golden standard where you want to be. And so when we're doing the proper procedures and we've got our things up to date, there are less incidents that you've seen happen, unfortunately, across the country, where police officers, men and women, they may not have the best training, they may not have the most up-to-date policies, and there may be incidents, unfortunately, that sometimes aren't handled the right way. But the more that we have up-to-date policies and the more that we invest in training and doing things right, we don't have those incidents here in Mansfield. And I'm very proud also the fact of the way that the police department engages the public, and also with the fire department. You've got two wonderful leaders of both departments who care very about the community and service to the community. And I have to say it's wonderful to be in a community that has that dedication from the departments, because you don't see that everywhere, you know. And that these people, they're out in the community. They care. There's a lot of social media and some fun things that they do that makes people feel connected in many ways. And the people should feel that their police department and their fire department are one with them in the community. Chief Bolgagini also is going to be working in 2019 on a community paramedicine program. And he's done a lot of outreach, certainly, Joe, with you and the staff, and working with specific people who may be having some medical conditions. And he's going to be trying to roll that out on a larger level. What we're seeing as a national trend is that we're seeing opportunities where your police and fire departments are actively engaged in incidents or handling of situations where we have people who are coming back from the hospital. They're coming back to their residence, whether it's a home, an apartment, or a condominium. And we want to be able to make sure that when we are notified of those cases and those clients, that we can do the proper follow-up. So it's an additional service that we as members of the public and of your government can be able to do to be able to make sure, are you taking the proper meds? Do you have the proper food? Are you taking things the way you're supposed to? Are you doing the follow-up activities that were prescribed to you by your doctor? Something that's very different, but what we can see as a return on the investment, it's important for the health and safety of our residents, but it's also more likely for a person not to re-enter the hospital. And that's our end goal. And that's a goal certainly for our area hospitals, because they'll get fined by the Affordable Care Act if you return to the hospital for your prescribed illness too soon. So we're partnering with the hospitals, and we're also trying to be able to see how we can provide that service. So the chief will be working with us in 2019 to help lift that program up to the next level, which will be very interesting. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot certainly at work in what we're doing here. And we certainly had some changes this year. John Stambrook, if you remember John filled in as the acting town manager for almost a year. And John was the finance director / town accountant. And John has been promoted to assistant town manager, finance director. And we've broken off the specific tasks of town accountant the way that it used to be on its own as its own check and balance. And Matt Violette is a Mansfield resident. He's coming to us from the town of Medfield. He's the assistant town accountant there. And Matt's joining us Monday. So we're really excited to have him on board, because John's going to be able to be more of a resource to me to work on a lot of the projects and initiatives that we're working on here in town, and for him to really be focusing also on his area as the finance director. Finance director has a different responsibility set than the town accountant, and it's very, very difficult in order. John was probably spending about maybe 10 days a month doing finance director activity, and the rest of the month was just the town accountant, day-to-day town accountant activities. And we recognized that and said, you know what, as we're looking at areas of economic development, increasing revenues for the town, which is also very, very important, in addition to all the projects that I'm taking on for the town, I said it'd be very good for John to be able to grow into a new position, recognizing his strengths and his talents in order to assist our office. So he just moved upstairs yesterday, and Dick saw him today in his new space right across from my office, which is really nice. And we're happy for John in his new role. We're also really happy about the fact that we have our own personnel department that's being formed. And so when I came in, we didn't have that here in town, but the school had its personnel director. Her name is Jocelyn Lemire. And we started to be able to do an identifying. We pulled some senior managers, some middle managers, and also some employees, and started to pool them and said, what are your thoughts about things that we've done well with personnel and things that maybe we've fallen short? And we want to make sure that we want to form a department, but we want to do it the right way. So we pooled all the feedback, and we had a consultant come in to help us do that, and provided a draft report that came back. And we recognized the wonderful talent that we had in Jocelyn. And so school superintendent Teresa Murphy and I had a discussion, and I said, what about the fact if we consider with the select board, we'll talk to the school committee, and of course with Jocelyn, to see if we were able to promote Jocelyn to the head of HR for the entire town, and then also hire 2 staff support to support her in that role. Both of the boards, the school committee and the select board, approved it. Jocelyn is now in her official role, and we're in the process of interviewing 2 people. They'll be joining us hopefully by the end of January, beginning of February, which would be fantastic. But we'll have central HR for the entire town, which is really important. And certainly the schools have the most employees, but the town also has a great number of employees as well. And that we have to also look at how we're managing workers' compensation. You know, we just had an incident last night. Somebody ended up getting hurt in the job. It was a difficult arrest, and a shoulder popped. But we have to make sure, right now we don't have the central HR function, so that was me today, making sure, has the person filed the proper paperwork? Did they go this morning to get evaluated at Sturdy? Are they taking the necessary steps? Because you can imagine, if we don't handle those situations properly, it ends up costing more money and then our employees out of work for a longer time. That's just one portion of HR. Never mind how we hire people, are we consistent across the board in how we do it, and how we're enforcing rules and regulations and making sure that things are fair across the board, and also a place for employees to go if you're having an issue, in a safe, protected environment. So we're really happy that that's lifting off the board. But that took a good 8 months through all the process, the feedback, the collection, working through how we're going to formulate the HR department. But we're so thrilled that that's going to be lifting off, because that's a very, very important role of what we do. And also the management of the healthcare plans for the town. That's a $15 million cost total for active and retirees for the town of Mansfield. So that's something that's very important that we manage, so we'll be working together with that as we move forward through the process as well. And then also looking at future planning. We engaged back in May at town meeting. I had asked for some funding to be able to work on an issue that the select board had tasked me with. And I've never seen anything else like this, other than what we've got here in Mansfield. And to see 1,100 cars a day go through the neighborhood to get to the commuter parking area, where it's the MBTA in the town, it's private landowner number 1 over here, and private landowner number 2 over here, for 1,100 cars that go in and out every day. And it's just, so the neighborhood has an issue, which I certainly understand, and the select board saying, listen, Kevin, can you work on this and find a solution? So part of that is what we're looking to do. We're doing 3 things. The first, or most important, is to be able to try to come up with, I formed a group called the Town Managers Strategic Development Committee. And what I've done is I pulled together members from the planning board, the zoning board, town staff from planning, the police department, the fire department, the finance director, the highway division, the DPW director, myself, and a couple of other people, to be able to come together, every single committee or commission that's going to touch this project. I want them involved, so what we discuss and what we talk about can be brought back to their committees and to their groups, and that everybody's included. Because I'm not going to think of everything, and the consultant's not going to think of everything, but the more people who are involved who can give their input and their participation will lead to a better plan. So we're looking at how we develop together that whole stretch of property with the 2 property owners and with the town, and how to develop something that will make sense for commuters, that would make sense to be able to create some commercial and business activity there, and be able to how to create some additional housing in that area, all focused on how you transit in and out, while isolating the neighborhood so they don't have to deal with 1,100 cars every day. So we started to get the commission together to work on that. We've been working on that since June. And there's still additional work to go, but I'm very happy that the committee's alive and well and working on that. In addition, to look at how we move people. And certainly also at town meeting, there were some dollars that were given to us that we're working on matching some state money to redo 106. And that's going to be from 140 all the way down Chauncey Street to North Main Street downtown. And it's going to be, how do we look at moving people, taking our current traffic flow, but also look at additional traffic that'll happen in the future, and how do we do that? And so the state's going to be paying for the overall improvements of the entire stretch. We just had to fund the design. So right now we're in the design phase. We split it up into 2 portions because the state's going to be making some improvements at 140 and 106. Well, I said, well, let's use the same designer and we'll marry up to that and take it from 106 and 140 and we'll bring it right up to Copeland. And we'll do that first section first. And so we're in the process of doing those designs now. Once something gets in the draft form, then we'll open it up for the public. So we'll let Joe know, and you certainly let us know of your feedback and your comment. But it would be a new intersection layout at Copeland, because it gets a little crazy when you get in one of those lanes and you can go straight and you can go left, and you get the yikes when you get in there, right? So that will be resolved as part of that improvement. That will be the first phase of the construction. We'll finish the design then for the second piece, which will be from Copeland all the way under the underpass up to North Main Street. And they're taking into account, as part of the design, using technology to be able to help us, and it's called smart signal transmissions. So what will happen, the signals will be watching and counting the traffic counts, and if they see a difference in peak activity, the signal will be able to change and add another, let's say, 5 seconds to allow some additional traffic through. Smart signal technology will be built in for North Main Street, for Copeland, and hopefully for the intersection at 106 and 140, so we can help move vehicles through more efficiently. But it's a different way for us to use technology in order to be able to have a better outcome. So we're working on that. So that will tie into the future development of what we propose there at the train station, transit-oriented development. And then we're looking at how we move those cars out. So if we expect to have 1,100 cars still parking in the same area with 3 different property owners, we're looking to do this as one development together with the additional commercial activity, probably a parking structure, and also a new roadway that will take you from 106 through the development and then out the back side out to County Street. And so that way we can have 2 means of egress for these people to get in and out of there every day instead of all trying to push through like sardines out on the 106 every morning and every night. So part of the development is it has to be that we get traffic in and out of that development from 2 directions to have a permanent solution so that we can be able to create a viable development at that location. So there's a lot of moving parts in this project. I've got the vision, we just have to make it happen. So, but the staff is fantastic in being able to cooperate and to participate in that. And that's going to be a multi-year project, but something that we want to be able to listen and we want to hear from people. So when we get to the point where we have a finished project, again, we'll let Joe know and all of our, through cable access and the paper, we want feedback on it because it's important for us to hear what people have to say, because if there's an issue that we're missing, then that's something we need to try to build in. And that's part of community involvement, which leads to my next portion, which is the town's master plan update. So it's a living, breathing document that's going to be updated by state law every 10 years. And so we're going to be embarking on that process starting this summer. And so we're going to be asking the public to participate and to give their thoughts and their input of the things that are discussed to determine things that we're thinking about, but we need the public's feedback. So we're going to be focusing on areas of economic development, on traffic, on housing, on elderly, council on aging issues, on school age issues, the whole gamut of all the things that we do across town and the services that we provide, recreational components, park activity, library, so all of those things, all quality of life issues, and from planning and development for the future, that's our document and that's our guide. So we as town leaders and through town departments will be giving feedback, but it's also important for the public to give the feedback, and we need that interaction. So I'm going to ask you, when we get to that point, if you can give a little time and come to our meetings that we'll be having. Most likely they'll be on Saturdays, and we'll probably host them at the school auditorium just to hold the number of people we're looking to hold. But the feedback from the public is so, so important. And I know there's so much spirit alive here in Mansfield that I'm hoping that we'll get several hundred people to participate, because honestly, that's when you get the best document back. So we're going to be asking for your participation in that, and that's going to be upcoming in 2019 too. We look back at my little issues here. I mentioned about the municipal project and the open house coming in August, which leads to the next 2 things. Of course, we're moving into the new facility for July 1st, which says, well, what happens to the other 2 facilities? So the select board tasked me with 2 things in addition on my plate, and one of them was the fact of what to do with the old fire station on North Main Street. Of course, we're still using it today. So right now we're having the property appraised in 2 ways. We're having the property appraised for the building as it is and the land that it sits on, and with the property next door that's that vacant parking lot. It may make sense for someone to reuse the building if we put it up for sale. You're going to need some additional parking. So we may look at buying the parking lot next door to the North Main Street Fire Station and then bundling it together in order to surplus the building. They also asked to have it appraised in 2 ways. One, with protecting the building facade for historical purposes. Change what you want inside to make it, whether it's a brew pub or whether it's for housing, a couple of condos or the such, but save the front facade. Try to preserve the outside. Do that as one package, and then the other package would be just to sell it as it is. Yes. So we're going to be able to put that out, and then the select board will make its decision, and that would be for the North Main Street property. For the police department property at 50 West Street, it ended up sparking an interesting discussion, what to do with the building. As you know, as part of the study that was done, it's going to take several $1,000,000 just to bring the building up to code and do the permanent repairs that are necessary if you want to reuse that building. There's also the fact to know that we're very cramped here for space at the COA. So one of the things is that Rep. Jay Barrows ended up getting us a $25,000 earmark in the state budget. And that was to evaluate to see if the 50 West Street facility at the police department could be transformed into a COA. And so at that point, COA would stand on its own instead of the shared space here, and that the library also has cramped space, and they would also like to be able to expand. So we're in the process of hiring a consultant with those dollars that were provided by Rep. Barrows to be able to do an analysis of the existing police department to see, A, how much it would cost to redo that facility for a COA, and B, would it be cheaper just to knock it down and build a new one? And I'm thinking that it's probably going to cost less to knock it down and build a new one than it is to renovate. So it's not handicap accessible. Once you do more than 30% of building improvements, the whole building in every aspect has to be up to full building code, which that building is not. So it's going to be very interesting to see for the COA's needs. So the COA, through Joe and through the staff, will be interviewed as part of the process to say, what do you have for space now? What would be ideal for what we are doing today? And how do you think this is going to change in what we do at the COA moving forward in the future? Does that fit inside that building? And that's where it's going to come into full discussion. They'll do an evaluation and they'll provide their feedback. But it'd be quite surprised to see. I've been involved in a couple of retrofit projects, and what we think would be very inexpensive in the end comes back, it's not so inexpensive. It ends up being very expensive. So we're going to look at that and all the options, but we're going to be starting to select the company, I would think over the next month or two, and to be able to see who that company, that architectural firm that would come in and be able to help us do that. It'll be very interesting.
Is the COA the only candidate for the use of that building, or are they still considering other departments or groups moving in there?
The thing that I've added on to the RFP for the request for proposal was considering something as part of what I've been involved in, and haven't got to the next level with Joe and the staff yet, and I will in 2019, but I served in the Governor's Task Force for Aging when I was at my former position, and also carried through to this position here in Mansfield. And we just wrapped up our final recommendations to the governor. And one of the aspects, if we're looking at services that we provide to the public, is how do we create intergeneration activity between our older adult population and our kids. So what we do know is that there is also a permanent space problem for recreational and park activities in an enclosed structure. So one of the things that we're going to look at as part of the evaluation is to add some type of common recreation space with the recreation space at the COA. So while you have separate breakout rooms that are going to be necessary, it would also be nice for a couple of purposes. One, when we have activities that have to come inside, there's nowhere for Park and Rec to go. The schools are frequently, all of our schools and all of our gymnasiums are taken, and so if it ends up having inclement weather, the programs have to be canceled all the time. Or if we want to hold a large event in town, we don't have a space to be able to hold it inside anywhere in town. So what we would look at is the idea of being able to have the opportunity to have some type of a large recreational gymnasium or multi-purpose room that would be added onto the facility. So if there's a large COA event that's even larger for the space you have now, it could be brought together with younger generation and an older generation together. If we have our summer rec programs and summer lunch programs that we have for the kids, we could end up possibly having help from the COA and providing lunch, and that there's cooperation from the older adult population and coordinating activities, something that we were just thinking about, but it's a way to be able to take care of two things with one issue, and that's something that we're considering. But other than those two particular, we would be looking at maybe adding on a park and rec component onto the needs of the current COA and what we think about in the future of the COA as well. Yes?
What about, how will the parking be there? There's not that much parking space there by the
So it would be a repositioning of parking and availability. There is some additional land that we can squeeze out for more parking, but it's more parking than most likely than what we've got here. Yeah.
You wouldn't be sharing it though with the library. That's true.
Right. But this would be on its own.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Could you tell us the status of the old library on, next to Town Hall?
Oh, sure. We embarked on, and thanks to town meeting, we embarked on a major renovation project of where the school administrative offices are, also referred as to the former library, Memorial Hall project. What an amazing project. If anyone's followed it over the summer months, and they're still doing work now, and a complete restoration of the exterior and of all of the windows and the doors. And it was amazing watching this firm literally every single cut of all those intricate shingles and having the building painted, the historical colors that were chosen. The building it's about 90% complete now. There's a couple little small carpentry issues that have to be finished. The installation of a new flagpole up top of the building, which was part of the original building but isn't there today. That's being reinstalled as part of the project. And there's the final windows that are being milled. We ran into some rotted wood issues, so we had to ask for an additional $40,000 in order to address the rotted wood issues of the wood windows and the sills. But that's going to be wrapped up in a couple months, so that'll be pristine. And we're also looking at the opportunity to do some uplighting on the building at night. So as there's some uplighting on Town Hall, we would have the same thing consistent on Memorial Hall. It's beautiful.
And will the superintendent of schools still be in there?
Absolutely. So all of
Because
the
I know the Mansfield Historical Society
was interested in
is interested.
kicking them out. So it's very interesting. So the schools are an intricate part of what we do and what we work with all the time. And I have to tell you, having your school administration connected to Town Hall is a beautiful thing. And so we share our common space together. So school committees held in the same room, the select board meetings are held, and all of the joint meetings that we have consistently every single week. It makes total sense that we are connected. At some point in the future, if there ended up being a proposed change, we would certainly entertain the thoughts from the Historic Society to be able to have that as a preserved area, as a museum or something to that effect. But at least for the foreseeable future, there's so much need for us to be together. The one town, one budget mentality and what we do all the time is very important, and that should be alive and strong.
Thank you.
For sure. Yes.
So my end of East Street, down past Flint Farm after you take a left, we're like the forgotten part of town. We don't have gas lines, we don't have sewer lines, and we don't have sidewalks. And I think that's important. There's more and more young families moving into those big old houses as elder people move out, that we absolutely need sidewalks.
Sure. One of the things that we'll look at is that in our multi-year forecasting, to be able to look at areas where we're trying to make strategic investment. The town doesn't get into gas service. That's provided by Columbia Gas. But that could be looked at as part of an overall improvement area. So for example, if we're looking to do adding a sidewalk isn't as simple as just adding a sidewalk. It's a total reconstruction, taking some property most likely, relocating walls and things of that nature. But if we embark on a larger project like that, that is something that we would probably be involved in and ask the neighbors in the neighborhood to see if they would want introduction of gas service, if it's possible by Columbia Gas, and if that's, then everyone would be assessed a dollar fee as part of the project. And what happens typically, every household gets assessed a certain dollar value. The more people that sign up, the less expensive it is. If it isn't, then the more costly it is for the homeowners to sign up, but the gas service would be on a per resident charge basis. And that would be something that we would engage them in if we're looking at a massive reconstruction project, because we'd want them to go in and do the work first, and then we would come in afterwards and rip everything out officially to redo everything. But But that's something that I'll mention to the group when we're doing our capital, and that's included as well. And I'm not aware of any master plan for that area, but that's something that I'll bring up.
We're forgotten down there.
And that would be also something else to bring up for the master plan as well, as we set our long-term goals. Okay, because that would be also, if it were sewer, or introduced as part of that. If there's a lift station involved, in order for us to get it out there and for the sewer to flow, and that would be a per charge betterment that the town would engage with you on as well. Sure. Yes.
I'd like to know if something could be done about the senior taxes. I know other communities offer a discount, I don't mean a work, for lowering taxes, but a different rate for seniors so that they can stay in the town instead of being forced out because our taxes are going up again next year.
Right.
And most of us are on, fixed income.
Sure.
So it's gotta come from somewhere.
Absolutely. Do you mind if I take your paper for a minute? Because very interestingly, on this issue today, it's on the top fold.
Yeah, they told me.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see it though.
So it's on the front page of the Sun Chronicle today. It says senior tax freeze bill eyed. So right now in Massachusetts, we do not have the ability to do a freeze or freeze assessments or any, thank you very much, to freeze assessments or to freeze tax bills. That's not allowed by state law today in Massachusetts. In Rhode Island they do, in Massachusetts they don't. But we do have there are two things that we do have the ability to do. One, Mansfield chooses to double the state allowed exemptions that are allowed by state law. At town meeting every year we put an article on, and whatever it is by state law, we double it. That's one thing that we do already today. The other thing that we're looking to do, and Joe has been fantastic in trying to work with me, to provide information where we looked at other cities and towns and what do they do for their senior programs. As it relates to specifically, it's the work program, but that's the only way that we have as an additional tool right now today. If this goes through, then we can tailor certain opportunities per municipality. Right now, we don't have any other tool other than the senior tax program. So what we're looking at is that Joe went through maybe 15 to 20 different municipalities, and they all had a little bit of a different version. Some were exactly the same as Mansfield, but then there were others that were higher than Mansfield's. So what we're going to be looking to do is we had to have a discussion at the select board, probably in the next month. I gave them a draft of Joe's report that she provided me, and we're going to be trying to talk about what additional opportunities we could provide in increasing the actual dollar amount for the exemption, that it would be even more worthwhile to participate in the program. Certainly Joe with the staff try to evaluate those people who come in and sign up for the program. Where are your strengths and where do we need the help? And we try to marry that up across the town, but we're looking to, I can't put words in the select board's mouths, so cable access. We are being filmed. We're looking to do something additional. I'm not at liberty to say what that dollar amount's going to be, but we are looking at increasing that dollar amount for those people who are eligible to be able to participate in the program. It will be more than the current $750.
How long do you think it will take to institute something like that?
That would be effective for the next year. So our new, in 2019. So the program year that will be starting for 2019, would be eligible for the new program that we're looking to put together for the increased dollar amount. Because that's something we are mindful for, and if there's a way that we can help participate in that and increase the amount, especially with the additional assessment coming on and increased dollar values, we want to be able to make sure that we can try and help in a certain way, and that's something that we do have the control and ability to do, and that's something that will be part of the fiscal 20 budget that we're working on now. Excuse me. Yes?
I'd like to know what's been done about the fiasco down at 15 Park Street, the senior center, not the senior center, but the senior housing. The entrance to the driveway where you get the cars parked, you cannot get in from the street because it's, the way it's built, it's not drained off. And every time it's a rainstorm or a snowstorm, you have a massive puddle down there, ice and every other thing. I got all kinds of pictures here, so you can take a look at them in your own time if you want.
Okay. Okay.
and, nothing's been done about it.
All right. Do you mind if I take those?
Yeah, sure.
And then, Joe, if we have the contact information afterwards, then we'll follow up. Oh, wow. There's several. Thank you very much. And as we talked about, we're going to be in construction again this upcoming season to connect the rest of the bike path all the way through. However, if there's an issue now with drainage and what's going on with puddling,
You can't get in with cars. You know, they're all sitting down there, with wheelchairs, canes, and rockets.
oh, I see. Oh, I got you. I'm not sure, I can tell you right now, there's probably nothing we can do in the middle of winter because we can't dig and we don't have asphalt readily available now, but there is a puddling issue for sure. So we'll get in contact, we'll put a plan together to get that resolved. It's because it's going to drain to the appropriate drain, we can't have that, yeah. All right. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'll work with the highway manager on that. Thank you. Yes?
I'm just curious about if you could update us, are there any plans at the conservation area, you know, the recycling center out there on East Street? When I was out there over the weekend, it looked like they were taking down all the trees.
Oh, yes. So let me tell you, thank you. That's a really good update. So as part of the municipal project, I talked about this at a recent select board meeting a couple of months ago. We talked about we need to get in, the intersection wasn't constructed appropriately. It used to be rated at a C, which isn't the best. We'd love to have it working at an A condition. When they did the work originally, before they touched the intersection, it was rated as a C. When they redid the intersection, it's now an F. So needless to say, they didn't get it right the first time, right? So as part of making sure that we can get into the new facility appropriately and for the traffic to flow better on 106 on East and Pratt, we're redoing that intersection and we're going to make it align perfectly with the entrance to the new public safety and DPW. As part of that, that entire roadway system is going to be ripped out. And also, they never moved the entrance to the green. And you can certainly know that those of you who go on a Saturday, it gets backed up, it backs into the intersection, it gets really nasty over there. So what we did, we had our plans approved through conservation and through the proper town processes. So all of that's being ripped out. The road's being moved over to be appropriately aligned with the public safety complex. The signals have to move, some of the signal arms have to move to accommodate the relocation of the road. And there's going to be a whole new entrance and exit out of the green, and it's going to be pushed back down East Street a little bit.
After the turn from east where Pratt comes in.
Correct. Once you take that left,
Maybe across from the area where the new facility is, where's the new entrance?
no. So if, I wish I had a picture of that with me today. So if you're coming from where you live, and you're coming from way down east, and you're coming towards Pratt, when you come to the intersection, you go past the municipal complex, the fire and police station will be on your right. You'll come past it, and then you'll have a left-hand turn lane. It'll be a smooth left onto east that will be perfectly aligned with the driveway to the municipal complex. Right now, it's off about this much, right? It'll be perfectly aligned. And we come into the green a little bit, and then as you're heading towards the schools, there'll be a new driveway further down on your left to go into the green. And there'll be a whole new tree planting program and a nice buffer. Because right now, even with the existing trees, it doesn't look that nice. We'll replant all of that and put a new buffer in, and it'll look fantastic when we're finished.
Do you think that facility has an extended lifetime? Because people have been saying to me that is like up to maximum, and it may not be there. I don't know if you have information on that. Do we expect that that will be available?
We expect that that's still going to be available. And there's still, we are doing some work out in the back. We have a regional tactical team that does response, and so there's plenty of room out back as well. So there's not any type of intention to be able to move the green.
Thank you.
Sure, but that was a really good point because there is a lot of tree clearing and things happening. DPW and the Highway Division is trying, when we're not dealing with issues like this, the things that we can get done now, we're trying to prep as much as we can for the spring because I have to have the whole thing completed by July 1st. because it needs to be open for when we go to the new facility. I can't have police vehicles and fire apparatus pulling out of an unaligned intersection that crosses over. You got people from the general public trying to come in with that very odd turn, especially. So and even though the school buses are doing it today, it's still not ideal. So that's going to be ongoing. So as soon as the weather breaks, you'll see everything start to be dug up, and we'll be doing some public announcements on that. But that's a big project that we've been working on throughout the end portion of the year to get ready to start that work now. But thank you for the question, though. That's a good one. Yes?
That was the second question I have, but the third question is like this gentleman. At 106 in Franklin, floods all the time. I don't mean a little, I mean feet.
Yes.
Even if you go down the middle of the road, because the sides, forget it, it's
Yeah.
still a foot.
One of the things over there, as part of the work that we're doing at this intersection at East and Pratt, we're trying to alleviate some of the other flooding conditions, so we're going to try to bring a pipe down to drain some additional water down towards the Canoe River down that area. But I'll mark that down just to follow up on that too. Thank you. Yes?
So, this is a totally different subject.
That's okay.
When you come up 106 and you get to Main Street and there's that intersection with the light, people come up that left lane, that's a left turn only lane, and they try to go straight and they try to run you off the road.
Gotcha.
Is there like a little barrier you could put in the middle, just, for left turn only?
What
I've seen it twice, and I mean, that's just.
Sure.
So,
One of the things that we can look at, Beta Incorporated is the consultant that we have to design that intersection. We can talk about different types of opportunities of how to better advise the public as you're approaching the intersection to know that that's a left turn only. You can't fully restrict it per Mass DOT standards, but there are other way of traffic improvements that we could do, whether it's additional striping and signage before you get there, or something that overhangs on a new mast arm that could be installed that clearly delineates its left. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
They know it's a left, they know it's a left turn only, and it's, some people are bullies and they wanna just go up that quick lane and then,
But maybe we can push it over a little bit so it's more of a disincentive where you can't because you'd be facing some oncoming traffic. That's something we can look at, but I'll mention it to Beta, of course.
it's dangerous.
North Main, Pratt, left turn. That's a good point, thank you. And then if you see it happening during a specific time period, if you do happen to see it, that can be very helpful because for the things that we can't do via a design, we can do via traffic enforcement.
Well, part of it would be when the trains come,
Yeah,
because the people coming along the street and that lane that's going straight all backs up.
When people are coming home or going to work, or coming home from work.
yeah, most of the time.
And people get impatient, they don't
Yeah.
wanna wait in that long line through the 1 or 2 or 3 cycles of the light.
So they cut up and then try to cut somebody off.
Constantly cutting in front of them.
So one of the things that you said about, looking to see the traffic pattern and making that light an extra 5 seconds or 10 seconds
During those peak times.
might be a solution to that problem.
Exactly. And I'll mention that to Beta when we meet with them on that. No, absolutely. No, absolutely. But that's important because it's one thing to be able to do traffic counts and to see how many cars are going straight, how many are taking a left, how many are taking a right. It's another thing at peak times. You got to have a person standing on the corner that's in it, just happens to be standing on the corner, just watching movement, because then you get to see the crazy stuff that happens at particular times, and then how do we try to alleviate that? And that's one of the ways in which you can too. A good point.
I've seen it a couple of times and other people I'm sure have seen it, so it happens a lot.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to mention that to traffic enforcement because we can stick a lovely officer down on the other side where they can't see them. Because if they do, that's an issue. And once you get pulled over a couple times, it's not so nice. So, but thank you for that. Did you have something?
I was gonna say, it happens on 106 going to Maine as well. They get in that left turn lane, and then they scoot over
Yeah.
into the, this street. It's just crazy.
All right, thank you. Joe, can you just do me a favor? Can you just call over and let them know? I just noticed the time and I'm 15 minutes over. I had an 11 o'clock, so let them
Yes.
know if they can start their process.
Okay,
It's actually with the property owners for the TOD.
okay,
Just let them know that they can start and I'll be there as soon as I can.
sure.
Thank you. Yes.
When are they gonna finish the parking lot?
Yes.
So that's going to be out spring. So I checked with them and
This would be going on four cycles.
yes. So be rest assured. I had a discussion with Mark Cook on that a couple weeks ago. And so that's on our spring list for sure.
And could you also mention to the the school administration, the kids cut through the parking lot, and I don't know, they think it's just a shortcut. And even if they're coming to the library, they should be walking down the sidewalk on Hope Street and coming in, I think, but they walk through the parking lot. We also have had the track team running through the parking lot when they're out doing their laps. They've also gone down Hope Street, continued through Hope Street to the Stearns end, and they fill the entire lane of boys joking and jostling and doing this, and they're
Right.
paying no attention to the traffic whatsoever.
And if you try to,
Somebody's gonna get hurt, and it's gonna be the driver's fault, even
That's
though the
right.
kids are not.
and if you try to talk to them with threats, they sass you back.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Sure, will do. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah. If you live in a condo in Mansfield,
Yes.
right, you pay taxes for garbage removal. Is there anything we can do about that? Because we pay to the town and we pay to our condo. That doesn't seem fair. Is there anything that can be done about that?
So so do you have a private hauler that you get charged for the condo?
Yes.
Separate and distinct from what happens with the town?
That's right, but we're still paying for it in our taxes,
Right.
which they're doing nothing. So is there anything that can be done about that?
I don't know, but I'll look into it. And where are you?
Heron Crest.
Heron
I
Crest.
think it's all the condos though, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong.
yeah.
Okay,
No, it is.
Yeah, thank you.
you're welcome.
I checked that out too.
Yes.
Are they doing anything about a new director for the COA, or where are we with that process?
Sure. Anytime we deal with personnel issues or anything across town,
I'm not trying to embarrass you.
no, not at all. Joe has done a wonderful job, and I appreciate the fact that Joe has stepped up in the acting capacity with where we are right now, and also to thank all of the employees of the COA for coming together as a group and understanding when we have challenges and we go through transition. It's been very, very nice to see the group come together and under Joe's temporary acting leadership in her position. I really appreciate that. When the issues, I'm sorry?
What did she ask? We couldn't hear.
So she asked about the current state of what the process will be in the future for the permanent director for the Council on Aging. And so while I can't get into specifics, I can say that certainly I appreciate the fact Joe has learned so much in such a short period of time. Unbelievable. And I have too, because there's certain issues Joe has asked me. I said, wow, that's a good question. I really don't know. But certainly with you, we're working with Jocelyn, and Jocelyn's our HR director. I'm working with John Stanbrook, our finance director. She's done a fantastic job, but it is going to be, we will have a long-term replacement upcoming in 2019. Okay, you're welcome. Yes?
What do you do in your spare time?
I will tell you how I start my day, how I end my day, honestly. I play the piano and I play the organ. And I have a piano at home. It's an old-fashioned baby grand that originally was a player piano, something that and I enjoy. It kind of just, it sets my day off, and it's a way to close my day, and it's something that I do. I also try to exercise at least 3 days a week at the gym. And so sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes, now they're open 24 hours, so sometimes I go late, depending on what time I wrap up at work. But I try to be able, those are two things that's important also for my life, in addition to my family and friends too, so.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Jokingly.
See that? Look at that.
Didn't want to get personal.